Today, I'm joined by Chris DeVries, who is running for House District 123 in Beaufort County. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we would love to start by letting our members learn a little bit about you. So if you would, tell me a little bit about your personal and professional background and how those shape your views on education.
Absolutely. I actually spent my life growing up and working in the Washington, D.C. region. Throughout my career, I worked for a number of nonprofit organizations. I did a lot of advocacy and governmental affairs work, as well as managed programs, and enjoyed it very much. And I really saw my life and my life's work to change the world. And although that sounds a bit cliche, it was very true. And so I worked for the American Nurses Association for over a decade, where I actually worked very closely with a number of teachers groups, because nurses and teachers have a lot of similar concerns and issues in the workforce. I also worked for an association that focused on late life mental illness for a while, and also worked for a number of associations that promoted women's rights, also often dovetailing with teachers' interests as well. My daughter left for college in 2015, and I decided to leave the DC area for good. We had come down to Hilton Head for pretty much 30 years, had bought a house a number of years prior, and decided to move. Once I got down here, I realized I needed to remain active, and so started volunteering for a number of organizations, mostly political organizations, which pretty much brought me to where I am today.
Well, that cliche of change the world will not sound like a cliche to most teachers, because that's why most people get into the profession. But our state has a problem because a lot of those teachers are leaving the profession. Last school year, over 6,000 left, and we had over 500 vacancies in classrooms to start the year. And that has huge negative impact for our kids. So as a member of the General Assembly, what steps would you push for to help our state better recruit and retain our teachers?
Well, and I know that's certainly true here in Beaufort County. We apparently, I understand, we recruit teachers fairly well, but we don't retain them. The average tenure for a teacher in Beaufort County is less than 5 years. Understanding that Beaufort County, especially in southern Beaufort County, where I'm from, is very expensive to live. Most teachers can't afford to live in the district that they're teaching in, and that's an issue. I think we need to be competitive. We need to not have our teachers leave and go to Georgia or North Carolina. We need to keep them here in South Carolina, and frankly in Beaufort County. We need to keep them here in Beaufort County. So that means pay raises, but not just a one-time pay raise, but a pay scale that is competitive with the rest of the nation. But beyond that, I think we need to give teachers the tools and resources they need. That includes everything from allowing them to do their job as well as they can in terms of resources while they are teaching, planning time, small classrooms, but it also includes a decent pension at the end. I mean, if you're going to devote your life to teaching, and you're not going to be a super highly paid person doing that, we know that, at least at the end, you should have a pension that recognizes the commitment you've made to the workforce. So everything from benefits to resources to good pay. And frankly, South Carolina lags behind.
Well, a lot of the issues that you raised beyond pay, around class size, around planning time, those were folded into the large, quote unquote, education reform package that the Senate looked at in January and February, the House looked at the year before. And that overarching comprehensive reform package hasn't passed the General Assembly yet. So it's likely to come up again in the coming year. So from your perspective, if elected to the General Assembly, what do you see as the core essential elements of educational reform that exist within S419 or the House version the year before? What does our state have to do to reform our schools to meet the needs of kids today?
Well, first, a number of things. First, we need to make sure that package includes and reflects the values of what the teachers want. I understand that the Senate and the House came out with somewhat different bills. That's what legislation is like. But you also need people there who are committed to sitting down and negotiating those differences, including the public support and the professional support and the parents, and understanding what they need in that bill, and coming up with a compromise that works. And that's what I did most of my life, is bring together coalitions of different folks and get legislation passed. Within the bill itself, as I said, I think the provisions that talk about pay, the provisions that talk about class size, the provisions that talk about planning time for teachers, all of those need to be included. A teacher's a bill of rights, but one that's can be enforced. It has some teeth. I mean, it's nice to give platitudes and say, "Oh, you're a wonderful person," but if there's nothing to back it up, it's quite honestly, it's a bit meaningless.
Sure. And you mentioned in an earlier response talking about the high cost of living in Beaufort County and the impact that has on teachers. And that gets to the fact that we have really localized needs across South Carolina with recruitment, with retention, with resources. But ultimately, our state Supreme Court and our state Constitution task the General Assembly with ensuring a quality education for kids across the state, regardless of zip code. And we've fallen short of that goal. Our own state Supreme Court has said that.
Right.
So, if elected, what steps do you view as being most important for achieving educational equity across counties and across zip codes for South Carolina students?
I think we need a robust funding source, quite honestly. I don't think we have that. I think the way that the funding has been allocated to education through sales tax as opposed through other types of funding sources is not really appropriate. Also, sales tax, as we can see in a time of a downturn of the economy, as we have been facing through COVID times, means that there's less revenue. I think the fact that homeowners do not pay a part of their property tax into ensuring that the schools in their area are fully funded is an issue. And so we need to really look at the whole funding mechanism, find a robust and stable assortment of ways to fund education. I think is in Beaufort County, I mean, we kind of had the has and the have nots. We have some wealthier sections of the county. We have some poor sections of the county, but we need to find a way that the county can also supplement. I mean, we had an issue here in Beaufort County in terms of facilities. We have a very fast growing population here. Our schools are beyond overcrowded. We built a new school in Bluffton 3 or 4 years ago. They're already having to use mobile units outside because they've already outgrown their space. And yet we need a special referendum in order to build new school facilities. And frankly, that school referendum, was up several times and was defeated before there was a real PR push and a real understanding by the public of why we needed to pass that referendum for new schools. But it seemed a very laborious way of trying to get new buildings that would actually fit our population. So I think we need to kind of throw out the current funding mechanisms and start anew.
Well, and one issue that is going to also hit the area of funding in the coming session is the issue of vouchers or private school scholarships, because the governor has made it clear that that is a legislative priority for him. He tried to do that through federal relief dollars, and the state court struck it down. But he has said he's going to ask the General Assembly for a permanent version of something like his SAFE Grant scholarship program. So if elected and that request comes to you from the governor, what is your position?
I am totally, totally opposed to diverting funds into private school education. Listen, parents, they have the freedom to send their children to whatever school they want. That's their choice. But public schools are our public education system and they need to be fully funded. I was very distressed to see the governor's proposal to divert federal aid, COVID aid that was intended for public schools into private school tuition. And my opponent, by the way, did support Governor McMaster's proposal. I was also very happy to see the South Carolina Supreme Court unanimously say that that was an inappropriate use of those funds. But public schools need public funding, and private schools have their own way of funding, and that's fine. But I am 100% against vouchers.
Well, we've covered a lot of educational topics, but I want to make sure that you get to share with our members the top priorities for you. So is there anything we haven't covered that you want to make sure our members are aware of before they vote this year?
Well, education is certainly one of my top priorities, as is environmental issues, as is healthcare. But sort of delving the healthcare and education again, one issue that I'm also very interested in pursuing when I am elected is looking at not only increased salaries for teachers in the public school system, but for other personnel who support the teachers. So the teachers can focus on teaching. Specifically, I think school nurses and mental health counselors are an essential component to our education system as well. And so I would like to see those positions also fully funded and also with appropriate pay as well.
And that is an area we're looking to include in our legislative agenda for the coming year. So excited to hear that. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us this afternoon. Thank you for your willingness to serve our state, and we wish you all the best. And if there's anything our association can do for you, please let us know.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.